And okay, 3, 2, 1. Come on.
No, I think we nailed it.
That was yep, absolutely. Hit it out of the park.
It looked good on my end. I don't know about yours.
Oh, great. I think okay, good. That definitely it. You know, we'll find out. We'll find out when I edit it. That's what we'll do.
Yep. Hey baby, I hear those blues are calling. It's time for the Frasier on Frasier podcast. Hello. It's I, your host, Adam Frazier, and with me is Wes Corwin.
It is I as well. I'm also me. Yep.
And it's the season finale of Frasier
On
our podcast.
It's the season finale of Frasier on Frasier, where we cover the season finale of Frasier on Frasier.
It would be because it would be awkward if we didn't have our season finale at the same time as the show that we were reviewing.
Right? No, that would be weird. We kind of committed around episode 3 or 4. We were like, we're kind of hitting the end of the arc of our own podcast. Should we take a break? And we realized we had 20 more Frasier episodes, and we were like, well, I guess we'll just find new ways to prop this story up. And we made it. We did it.
And we've still got like 10 more seasons to go.
10 more seasons of Frasier.
How will this end? Will the romantic subplot between me and Wes ever be resolved?
No, absolutely not. Look, if there's one thing I've learned from Cheers, you got to maintain that will they won't they. Otherwise, your female lead turns into a Trump supporter, and I'm not gonna find out that about myself. Absolutely not. Fucking Kirstie Alley. Hey, let's talk about Frasier. Let's
talk about it. We got episode 24, season 1, My Coffee with Niles.
Coffee with Niles.
Not a clip show.
No.
Not a clip show episode. I left you hanging there, Wes. I know.
I was very afraid. I started preemptively watching Frasier clips so that I would be ready if it was a clip show. But it turned out not to be a clip show. It turned out to be an actual episode, and it was very fun.
I mean, there's really only one clip show episode that I can think of in Frasier, and it's done in a way that's clever enough to where I don't really think of it as a clip show episode. Mm-hmm. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
For now, we're talking about the season finale of Frasier. I think a very well done episode, very well done season finale. I think it's nothing like big or spectacular, but I think it wraps up the season well.
Yes.
We kind of come full circle because we start off in Cafe Nervosa.
Old Cafe Nervosa, where we began, we end.
Right. Mm-hmm. We see Niles is on his cell phone. He's talking to Maris. He's giving her directions. Mm-hmm. Frasier walks in. He's like, "Oh, are you giving Maris? Did Maris get lost again?" And
right.
Niles is like, "Oh yeah, she got lost on her way to the living room, and I had to talk her back because their house is so big.
Oh.
They live in a giant mansion."
I just thought she was very prissy. I just assumed Maris is the kind of person that would want to be in the living room and would end up in the kitchen and would not know how to get back. But also very possible that it's just too big. Their house is too big. They're very wealthy.
Right. And where how does this episode start?
They decided to meet. Niles and Frasier wanted to meet up for coffee. They want to get a table, but they can't.
Right. There's too many. There's too many people. Overpopulation.
Packed at the Cafe Nervosa. Niles has been giving a death stare to a table that got their check 5 minutes ago, and they haven't budged, no matter what dirty look he shoots them. And then Frasier's like, "Well, show me the look," and Niles does like a one eyebrow look, and Frasier's like, "Oh, they're going to be there for a while."
You could just go over to the Starbucks across the street, but
right. But I don't think they serve a Zimbabwe and a Kenya at the Starbucks.
Yeah, that's weird drink names at Cafe Nervosa. We get our favorite barista.
Mm-hmm. Old waitress.
Old luck Hari.
Luck Hari, who was she in last episode or
She's been in several episodes that we've seen.
Yeah.
But she is by far my favorite barista in Frasier, and they don't do enough with her.
No.
They do. She does get some good lines in this episode, but yeah, there is no room at Cafe Nervosa. Frasier and Niles are trying to get seats. Oh, this is a nice little callback to the very first episode. We have Niles talking about how Yoshi the gardener
yes,
finally won the Battle of the Wills, and they're gonna put in a Zen garden instead of take out Maris's camellias. Which if you recall in the very first episode, I think the first conversation between Frasier and Niles is Niles just talking about how Yoshi wants to put in a Zen garden.
and then Niles went inside. He went inside and shut the door and waited for Yoshi to calm down because that's the kind of confrontation Niles likes to have.
Right. So nice little bit of continuity there.
Yes.
So they both decide they're going to give the death stare to the people who have received their check, but it won't leave. They do leave, but then someone grabs the seat before them.
Immediately locks into that table, and they were like, it's worth a try. So they do it, and then Niles goes to the men's room and tells Frazier to try to stare at that table, get him out, and then we move on to the next scene. They're just they decide to bar it up for a while. They're drinking at the bar instead of finding a table.
Right. Frazier and Niles, they order their drinks. Frazier orders. I think he orders the Zimbabwe, doesn't he?
He does. Frazier wants the Zimbabwe. Niles wants the Kenya.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're, and this kind of sets up a running joke for the episode. But we get our Frazier and Niles. They're having their conversation. Well, no. So they decide that because they can't get a seat inside, they're going to go outside. I think this is the first time we've seen Cafe Nervosa outside. Yeah.
I think this is the first time we've popped. No. I remember. So during the episode, if you'll excuse me, I remember when Frazier was going to get into a fight. We briefly popped outside Cafe Nervosa because Frazier.
Briefly.
Yes.
But we didn't actually see the outside.
I think Martin came out, they were talking outside before they went back into Cafe Nervosa very briefly, but...
The camera was outside?
The camera was outside.
But we were still it was still pointed very much inside.
Yes.
So you couldn't just see that there was nothing outside. It was just a void.
It was just a void. The entire...
It's like the Matrix.
Cafe Nervosa is at the end of the universe, so you can't see anything past it. It's just the end of what things are.
But they built an exterior for Cafe Nervosa, and this is the first time we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Frazier and Niles, they get a table. Niles does his whole routine where he wipes down the chair with a handkerchief because he's a germaphobe.
Yeah. There's one weird joke that I thought was delightful. Where Frazier's like, why don't we take a table outside? And Niles says, I'm feeling alfresco. And Frazier says, oh, well, how does Mrs. Fresco feel about that? And they chuckle. And just an odd joke about presumably Niles feeling up a man named Alfresco, who's married, so not even a bachelor Alfresco. Niles both, he is married, and presumably Alfresco is married, and they're fondling each other. But... I guess that's the joke. The more I think about it, it's one of those things where it's a dumb pun, but the more I think about what is being said, the funnier I think it is. So at first you're like, and then you think about it more, and it's hysterical.
I missed that joke completely. So it's basically just means when you're eating out and
when you eat outside, it's called al fresco, and Niles says, I'm feeling al fresco. And Frazier says, how does Mrs. Fresco feel about that? As if Niles, instead of feeling like eating outside, is groping and fondling a man named Al Fresco.
Can you explain it one more time?
See, the idea here, if I may credit writer I don't know. Oh, written by David Angel and Peter Casey. I believe.
Series creator.
I believe. Oh yes, I believe they both had in mind. Well, Niles is groping somebody. He's got his hands down somebody, and then Mrs. Fresco pops around the corner and she's like, "My word!" But she doesn't immediately intercede. She's intrigued. And then that's what Frasier's talking about.
Got it. I think. So
Niles wipes down the seat. He wipes down the seat, and
he wipes down the seat, and he asks Frazier a question, which is, "Are you happy?"
Are you happy?
Well, and specifically, this is brought on by the fact that Frazier points out to Niles that it's been 1 year since he moved back to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So since the new chapter of his life is in full swing, Niles wants to know, is he happy?
Right.
And Frazier's like, well, that's a very complex question. And Niles is like, no, it's not.
Frazier goes, yes, it is. And Niles goes, either you're happy or you're not. And then Frazier, sort of backhanding the question, is like, well, are you happy? And Niles says, no, but we're not talking about me. And then Frazier goes, oh, well, you just said you're not happy.
You're my brother. That bothers me.
Right.
Why aren't you happy, Niles? And we find out it's because he watched a documentary where a kid receives some shoes on the Dust Bowl.
He was watching a documentary by PBS on the Great Depression, and then he name drops Steinbeck, the guy who wrote East of Eden, The Grapes of Wrath, and he was talking about this poor boy, this peasant boy who received a brand new pair of shoes, and his face lights up, and he's just purely and emphatically happy. And Niles has never experienced that because he's never, I guess, been a poor boy in the Great Depression. Or if he was never offered shoes. He never got those shoes.
No, but he did buy shoes. He bought some very $400 Bruno Magalis.
Yes.
And they have tassels on them.
They have tassels, and Frazier looks at him and he's like, I'm not much of a tassel guy. And Niles says, no, neither am I. But there they are.
Which apparently there's an episode of Cheers where Frazier says he loves tassels.
Oh, we were just talking about the good continuity of this show.
I mean, Frazier's allowed to change his mind.
That's true. That's fine. Is he? But okay.
So yeah, Niles is like, well, you know what? It's not all bad. You know, I've got my practice, and but I've lost my ideals of what led me to psychiatry in the first place. And then Niles is like, oh well, look who I'm talking to. You're the psychiatry answer to a drive-through window.
Right. Pretty clever bashing of Frazier being a radio host psychiatrist.
Well, and Frazier's like, well, I wouldn't say that's true, and he kind of trails off, and Niles is like, what? And he's like, well, no, I'd rather not. And Niles is like, oh well, I think I know what you were going to ask me. Did I marry Maris for the money? Mm-hmm. Which is a question, which is a legitimate question. It's been very well established by this point. Maris is very wealthy.
Maris the heiress. She's very, very well taken care of monetarily. Yes.
So there is the question of whether Niles married Maris specifically for money, because outside of that, they don't seem to have the happiest of marriages.
They're fine. I mean, I don't know how often we see them fight, but we also never see them together.
We also never see Maris.
Yes, she could. I wouldn't openly speculate, and I do love Niles, but you do have to start wondering if it's like the wife of the guy who's in charge of Scientology, where she went on a boat and no one's seen her for 4 years, and they keep being like, she's fine. Yes, Kirstie Alley. That's who I'm talking about. Kirstie Alley disappeared on a boat 4 years ago, and now she's on Twitter, and we're just supposed to act like that's normal, and I'm not about it.
How are they going to make the sequel to Toothless?
I don't know. Okay, well, we can have that discussion real quick, as we're deviating. As you recall,
does Scientology allow you to believe in the Tooth Fairy?
Yes, but don't change the subject, Adam. As you recall, the Tooth Fairy, the film The Tooth Fairy, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, had a sequel, and that was The Tooth Fairy 2, where he was played by Larry the Cable Guy, the Tooth Fairy.
I saw I saw the Tooth Fairy in theaters.
Yeah.
I did a review of it in high school.
What a journey that must have been to watch that. So by that logic, if Dwayne the Rock Johnson's sequel, we go to Larry the Cable Guy, Kirstie Alley in Toothless, who is in Toothless 2? There's a correct answer.
I'm trying to think. What is the Larry? What is the Larry the Cable Guy equivalent of Kirstie Alley?
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something funny here, but I can't.
I believe the answer is Roseanne Barr.
Okay, of course. Of course.
There we go.
Yeah, no, you nailed it, Wes.
Thank you. I'm gonna make that pause you took, and when we edit this podcast, I'm gonna make it 4 times longer. That's what I'm gonna do.
Just to show the audience that you were funnier than me.
You know how it is.
So, God, where were we?
They were Maris. Niles didn't marry, and he's offended that Frazier would insinuate that not
right, that he married Maris for the money.
Right.
And he explains, well, it's not. Me and Maris have a different kind of love.
Mm-hmm.
We're old friends. We can, be in a room together, not say a word, and just be perfectly content.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's like, okay, fine. That's how you express love. I think Frazier says something like, "Oh, I'm told it was a lot like that near the end of the Hitler household."
Sure, between Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler. Yeah, there a lot of Adolf Hitler at his jigsaw puzzle while Eva played the auto harp. So just a lot of parallels between the two of them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we then so Niles is pressuring Frazier for the answer. The original question, Niles asked Frazier, are you happy? Before Frazier can answer, Roz comes over.
Mm-hmm. And I could be wrong. I believe this is the first time in the Frasier series that Niles recognizes and names Roz without her having to introduce herself.
I noticed that. I don't know if it's the first time, but it's notable. Anytime in this, because again, it's been sort of a running joke that Niles does not remember Roz any time they meet.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he definitely says hello to her. Although he may just be following Frasier's lead.
Right.
Because I think Frazier is the one who says hi, Roz, first.
It's very close though, and I don't know. I mean, Niles is a smart guy. I don't know if he'd be that quick on the draw. It feels like pretty quick one after the other. Also, yeah, I mean, so it's established Roz kind of doesn't like Niles, which is it would make sense if it happened after the first couple of episodes, but more recently Niles made a point to drop by and sub in for Frasier a couple episodes ago, and he did a great job to the point that Roz was like on the edge of her seat. So, but it's also possible that Roz is sincerely irritated that Niles doesn't remember her most of the time. So.
Well, and Niles asks her, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And Roz gives a really snarky answer.
Right.
She says she's there to get jet flying lessons.
She's gonna
at Cafe Nervosa.
Because they offer jet flying lesson. They have a special on it, so she thought she'd come by and take advantage. And Niles gets very, and she's like, "I came here for it's a coffee shop. I came here for coffee." And he goes, "Oh."
Well, thanks for stopping by. Would have been mad if you didn't.
Yeah.
No, we hear from Roz. She's got a new flame, someone who just joined the news department at KACL, Andy Winslow.
Andy Winslow. Do we see him later? We do see him in this episode. Is he a regular fixture of the show after this?
I don't think so. No.
Andy Winslow.
It's a one-off.
Okay.
These men, they drift in and out of Roz's life, all the time.
Right.
So she meets Andy Winslow. She's meeting him there for coffee. She was checking him out when he was bending over by the water fountain. Yeah.
Love at first sight, Frazier says.
Yeah. So, yeah. Niles is she's excited. She's got sort of a little date planned. She goes into Cafe Nervosa. Niles is like, I don't think she likes me.
And then Niles...
Frasier's like, no, she despises.
Yeah, it isn't a question of liking or not liking. She despises you. And Niles goes, well, I don't know why she feels so strongly. I barely acknowledge her existence or the fact that she's alive. And Frazier goes, think you might be onto something there. Yeah.
Niles does kind of press back on Frazier. You know, he's like, hey, Frazier, did you ever think about hitting that?
Yeah.
Those aren't his exact words.
That's about. You ever thought about doing it with her? And then Frazier goes, hell no. Well, I mean, I've thought about it. And then that's the end of the scene. And then we move on.
Yeah. We don't get a lot of romantic tension between Frazier and Roz.
Right.
But I find it interesting that they're planting the seed of that possibility at this point in the series.
Yes.
So we get to we fly. Oh well, no. I think also before we skip to the next scene, Frazier he gets brought his
decaf coffee. Zimbabwe latte.
Right. And this is our running joke for the episode.
Yeah.
He's brought his coffee, and it has milk it has regular milk in it, and he wants non-fat milk.
Yeah, he's watching his fat intake, so she asks her to make it again.
Right. So she's gone, and she goes to make it. Actually, I think that came up earlier in the episode, and we just didn't talk about it.
It did. We skipped it. The first time it came around, it was a Zimbabwe latte, and it turned out that he wanted it decaf. He was like, "Is it regular?" And it's like, "No, is it decaf?" And they were like, "No." And he was like, "Oh well, I need decaf. Otherwise, I toss and turn while my brother's speaking, as if he'd be bored, and fall asleep." Yeah. And so the coffee comes back, and they're like, okay, here, it's a decaf. And they're like, does it have non-fat milk? And they're like, no. And it's like, well, I want non-fat milk. And then they take it away again.
Yeah. So at that point, it begins to rain.
Yes.
Seattle. It's very rainy.
It rains a lot.
Yeah. So Frazier and Niles, they move inside. It's still very crowded indoors. They try and get a table. Someone snatches it. Another table opens up, and Niles nearly runs over a guy getting to it first.
Mm-hmm.
It
is impressive. We've talked about David Hyde Pierce as a physical actor, but even as a physical person, he doesn't seem very imposing. He's a slender man. He's a thin person, and he shoulder checks this guy. He tackles that guy. This guy goes to the table and he brings his full nope, and he blocks it with his shoulder. It's a linebacker kind of move. It's very impressive.
Yeah, he could be a football player.
He could be a football player. David Hyde Pierce could.
Niles and Frazier, they get a table. Niles is like, oh, I guess I just wanted it more than he did. I didn't just physically assault a man over a table.
I didn't just hit it, but I did. I blocked him out of the way. That's me.
Yeah.
That's what separates us.
So Frazier and Niles, Frazier thinks of something that happened earlier today. He recalls he was at breakfast with Martin. And Martin asked him to pass. Oh no, he asked Martin to pass him a bran muffin.
Yes.
And then Martin said, "What's the magic word?" And
then Frazier follows it by saying Martin didn't like it when Frazier said the magic word was rest home. Yeah.
That I think might be my favorite joke.
It's good. It's a good one.
So they look over. Roz she's managed to find a table, and she's sitting down there with the Andy Winslow. Mm-hmm. And Niles looks over at them. He's like, "Wow, he's really handsome."
Yeah.
And Frazier's like, "Did you just say wow?" And Niles is like, "Oh wow, I guess I've never used wow in describing another man before. I wonder if it means something."
Frazier said,
and Frazier's like, "Yes, it means you're a gay man.
It means you're gay. Your life with marriage is a charade. You should have come out of the closet years ago. Are you going to tell Dad, or should I?" Which is interesting because this is only the second time we've seen Niles attracted to a man. In this case, it's Andy Winslow, but before he was fondling alfresco. And
Well, and it's meant to be just a nod. I think it's supposed to be a nod to the fact that in real life, David Hyde Pierce is openly gay.
neat, good.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, great.
So, God, this is one of the worst episodes to talk about because it's just people talking.
It's a lot of chat. It's a lot of fun chat. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say that between Andy Winslow and Alan Fresco, I think that Niles. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We eventually talk about Niles' romantic interests, and we'll get there organically.
We will. And speaking of which, Daphne and Martin come in.
Yes.
So Martin is out walking with Daphne. They've got Eddie with them. The waitress comes over, and the waitress is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, no dogs are allowed." And then Martin's like, "What?" And he's like feeling around like he's blind.
That is possibly I think that's my favorite joke of the episode.
That's also pretty good.
Yeah.
Just the entire time where Martin is acting like he's a blind person.
Right.
He keeps it up. I was watching in the episode, and there are a couple of moments where the waitress comes back.
She brings the coffee, and then he goes to feel it, and then she takes his hand and put it on the cup, and it's very fun. It's very fun.
So she lets it slide that Eddie's there.
Yes.
And Martin sits down with them to have a conversation.
Oh, I thought your mic went out. You just stopped talking.
Yeah, I did.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, no, it is. I'm fine.
So Martin and Daphne sit down, and Martin is feeling a little fussy. Daphne wanted them to get some exercise, so they decided to walk down to pick up some beans from the Cafe Nervosa. And she's like, well, two of us walked. The other had to be dragged by his collar. And Martin's like, hey, I told you, because you think she's talking about that dog, but Martin is the one she dragged by the collar. And then Martin's like, I'm going to die of pneumonia because it's cold and rainy. And Daphne's like, you're going to outlive all of us. The cranky ones always do. And they want to get him. Frazier and Niles, he sits down with his sons.
Right.
They
start having an argument.
Well, first they want to get him a coffee, and then he's like, I don't want coffee. Give me something. Don't put anything fancy in it. And Rachel's like, we have two special coffees. And then Martin just stares, and then they're like, I'll surprise you. And then they get into an argument about everything.
Yeah, so Martin is upset that Frazier let the kitchen a mess.
Right. Full of toast sweat. Crumbs and toast sweat.
He had a piece of toast. Frazier had a piece of toast, and he left it sitting on the counter, and it develops toast sweat.
Crumbs and toast sweat. The droplets of dew behind toast. When it's too hot and you leave it on a surface, it leaves droplets of toast sweat.
And I was surprised to hear, because I've heard toast sweat outside of Frasier.
Really?
I have.
I've never heard of toast sweat before now.
Yeah, no, I guess it's just maybe it's an actual thing. I don't know.
I
mean, I can imagine that it is. I've just never heard anyone. I've heard people refer it to it like that, but then the show also confirms it.
Yes.
So it's basically Frazier and Niles and Martin and Frazier having an argument. The waitress brings Frazier his coffee.
Yes. It's a decaf non-fat Zimbabwe latte, and Frazier's like, oh, is that cinnamon on it? And then before he can even say he doesn't want cinnamon on it, she takes it away. And that's how that goes.
Yeah. So Martin and Frazier continue arguing. Martin makes fun of the fact that Frazier keeps his sweaters in a place called a cubby.
It came up because Eddie is sleeping in the sweater cubby, and it's getting hairs all over. And Martin is like, serves you right for keeping your sweaters in a thing called a cubby. And then they keep escalating, and Martin threatens to move out. And it is another callback to the first episode, because he says that he doesn't want to be a burden to anybody. Frazier finishes because there's the same conversation they had in episode 1 when Martin wanted to leave because he didn't want to be a burden to anybody.
Right. Right. So he's just gonna leave.
Just gonna leave.
He'll pay. I'll pay for my coffee too. How much is it? And Frazier's like, it's $1.50. Like, for coffee?
What kind of world are we living in?
In this economy?
In this economy, I'm gonna have to loan the dog and pay. Yeah, that's kind of a thing.
I'm gonna have to sell my dog. My seeing eye dog.
I'm gonna have to give my eyes, donate my eyes to science, my non-functioning eyes, because I'm a blind man in this cafe.
So, yeah, Niles he comforts Frazier.
There's also
well,
yeah,
kind of. It doesn't. He doesn't really comfort him, but Frazier, we cut to sometime later. Frazier is coming back from the bathroom.
Right. This is another call. It's an episode full of continuity and callbacks. Not necessarily to the first episode, but earlier Niles went to the men's room, came out, and was like, "Oh, they have a new dispenser of moisturizer, and it's just too oily. I have to rewash my hands, and then it doesn't feel good." And then later, Frazier went to the restroom, and he's like, "Oh, it's so." The hand cream, it's super oily. I couldn't get it off my hands. I waited.
Couldn't grip the doorknob.
I couldn't grip the doorknob. I was trapped. I started to think about my new life in this restroom. And that's when somebody else opened the door. And I said, "Oh my God, am I glad to see you." And just not the best thing to yell at a man coming into a restroom and seeing you with your hands oily. Just kind of not a good look. And then the man walks by and gives him a look, and Frazier goes,
It's like, there it is, that's the look.
That's the look. I can't even begin to describe it. I don't have to, because he's looking at me the same way.
Haunts me to this very day.
Ugh.
So, yeah, Daphne's still there. She's still getting coffee beans. And she's talking about, how...
The old Frazier father and son, they're at it again.
Right,
they're fighting anew.
She's talking about how Martin's been a little fussy lately.
Mm-hmm.
When she insists that he do his exercises, he told me to put my feet behind my head and spin like a top.
And Niles starts to zone out staring at her. And Frazier,
he's having one of his fantasies.
Yeah, one of his daydreams where Daphne does something, and that's what's going on there.
So Daphne leaves. Niles is still kind of enamored with her. He says, "Here, take my bumper shoot," because it's still raining outside.
And in another, we're just doing a thing back to the earlier scene. They walk in to the cafe. At the very beginning, Martin and Daphne walk in, and Martin's like, it's wet, it's raining. And Daphne's like, "I told you to pack your bumper chute." And Martin's like, "Speak English." And then Niles offers Daphne his umbrella, but says, "Take my bumper chute."
I find it hard to believe that English people actually say bumper chute.
Why don't we find out? I'm Googling it.
I think this is made up TV stuff. I think this isn't true.
It's a thing. It is an.
I know it's a thing. I know bumper shoot is another word for umbrella. I don't think it's used as commonly as umbrella is.
Bumbershoot is an annual international music and arts festival held in Seattle, Washington. One of North America's largest such festivals. It takes place every Labor Day weekend at the 74-acre Seattle Center, which was built for the 1962 World's Fair.
Well, there you go.
Was it? I believe it was started by Frasier? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing. I think there's an episode about that.
There's an episode about the Bumbershoot Music Festival, and that's good.
Right.
Good.
And they were gonna call it the Umbrella Music Festival,
and then Daphne was like, we should call it the Bumbershoot, and then Martin was like, "There's no way we're," and then they do like a, and then speak English, damn you, yeah. So
So Daphne leaves. Niles is still very. He's still got that look on his face.
And
Oh,
he,
she.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Daphne's like, oh well, at least someone appreciates my mother tongue.
Right.
And Niles is like, oh well, I've always had an ear for your tongue.
Yep. And then there's a big woo from the audience, and Frasier goes nah, and then Niles like, I don't know what I said.
So, so this brings us to again one of the probably the best parts of this episode. Frazier confronts Niles directly. He asks him for the first time directly, "Do you have feelings for Daphne?"
Mm-hmm.
And Niles, of course, at first is like, "Oh, how could you insinuate such a thing? I'm insulted." And then there's a pause. They exchange looks, and then Niles is like, "I don't know."
I said I don't know. Why did you hire Venus herself? Couldn't you have found some beefy East European scrub woman who reeked of ammonia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting because I think this is really the first time Frasier and Niles has had an open conversation about this.
Right, because before Niles was just openly, constantly flirting with Daphne, and Frasier was irritated by it but wouldn't talk about it. And it's been 24 episodes now, and Frasier kind of just feels the need to air things out because it's a little awkward when your brother keeps trying to hook up with an employee or live-in nurse, whatever the term is. Like Frasier is paying her to be a yeah.
She's a physical therapist. She's a nurse. She's a housekeeper.
Right.
She's everything.
She's
everything to everybody.
She's everything to everybody, and Frasier is going to lose a lot of things, and also possibly deal with a lawsuit if Niles approaches her in a romantic sort of way and is rebuffed and things get. This is kind of workplace harassment, is when your brother comes to where your housekeeper works to constantly hit on her.
Well, and this is also, they talk about the fact that well, does this mean, Niles? Does this mean that you want to leave Maris? And Niles is like, no. And Frasier was like, well, then I guess you want to have an affair
with Daphne and stay with Maris. And Niles goes, yes, and then says, can I do that? And Frasier goes, no, you can't.
No, you can't.
And Niles goes, I thought that I couldn't, but you got my hopes up there for a minute.
Yeah, and then again, Niles tries to turn the conversation back to his question.
Right.
Asking Frasier if he's happy. And before Frasier can answer,
Roz comes over.
Roz comes back over. She's upset because apparently her date with
old Andy Winslow. It turns out
he
was not trying to date her. He was trying to convert her to his religion.
He was a Scientologist.
He was a Scientologist. He was trying to get her to believe.
He was Kirstie Alley in disguise.
He was trying to get her to follow Kirstie Alley on Twitter.
So it was like a Mission Impossible style mask, and he pulled it off, and it was Kirstie Alley.
It was Kirstie Alley the whole time, and Rod's like, ah, damn it.
So yeah, Roz goes on this rant about how I don't have a problem with people anything against religious people, but you can't just pretend like you're going to ask me out. Isn't there a commandment against that? And
Niles says, no, they didn't actually cover dating until the New Testament, and that's got him.
So Frasier says, Roz, why don't you join us? And Roz is like, oh no, I'm just gonna go and try and have sex with the new handyman in my building.
That isn't exactly what she says, but that's about what she says.
Right. And she leaves.
Yeah.
And Niles, is laughing, and Frasier's like, you don't believe her, do you? That's exactly.
She's gonna go have sex with that handyman.
So yeah, we get a quick conversation about Frederick.
We do, because Frazier, we get a little bit of a reveal that as much as Frazier is feeling closer to his dad. We skipped over it, but there was a bit where he fell asleep on the couch and he woke up and Martin was like doing a little bit of playing with his hair,
tussling his hair,
giving him a little hair tussle. Like, this is my boy, this is my son. He's asleep on the couch. I'm going to tussle his hair. Frazier woke up and he says like, you got to cut you're looking like Bozo the Clown over here. But and then Niles and Frazier both agree that he was probably covering for the fact that he was feeling a little affectionate.
Yeah, he's rough on the outside, Martin.
Right.
But on the inside, he's just one giant spike, as Niles puts it.
Very fun joke. Very clever. And then
Martin does come back.
Does come in. Before that happens, I do want to say Frazier reveals that his fear is that as much as he loves his dad, he's afraid that in however long, 10, 15, 20 years, he will be the one with a small dog crashing at his son Frederick's home, waiting for him to die. Basically, waiting for waiting for Frazier to pass on, doing the right thing. Basically,
which that is essentially my Frasier reboot script. Frasier gets a dog, moves in with Frederick, and they start a podcast together.
And that's season 12. That's season 12 of Frasier.
Yeah. So.
Hold on. We've recorded 24 episodes. I can't believe I haven't had this idea. Why haven't they done young Sheldon but young Frasier?
Oh, well.
Why haven't they done young Frasier?
The whole young concept hadn't been invented yet in the 90s.
But why haven't they done young Frasier?
They you know what, they need to. We do get glimpses throughout the series of Frasier and Niles' childhood.
Right.
We see them played by children several times. Never by the same children, which is kind of weird.
That is weird.
Like, they don't have a consistent child actor for Frasier and Niles.
He just looked differently over the course of their childhoods. They just looked like different children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have been much happier if they had just had Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce playing themselves but as children.
That would have been fun if they had done that.
They were always just adult-sized boys.
Yeah, if they had done that thing where you superimpose Kelsey Grammer's head onto a 6-year-old. Now that's how you win Emmys. That's how you stack Emmys. That's how you do that. Yeah.
So Niles again tries to steer the conversation back towards his original question.
Are you happy?
Is Frasier happy?
Are you happy, Frasier?
Are you happy? And again, before Frasier can answer, Martin comes in.
Martin comes back.
And I was like, oh, for Pete's sake.
Right. Now, Pete's sake is a different man than Alan Fresco. But Niles is clearly doing what he's doing for Pete's sake. We've also established that he would have an affair with Daphne if given the opportunity. So that sort of gives some continuity to why he's doing things like feeling Alan Fresco or doing things for Pete's sake. This is all word jokes, and we can move on.
I want to remind the audience that Wes is the funnier of
the
two hosts of Frasier on Frasier.
Between the two of us, I have won an award for comedy, which is just outrageous.
So we get... So Martin comes in. I mean, the gist is that he's apologizing for his earlier behavior.
He's been a little catty. He's been a little sassy, and he wants to.
We find out the reason. Apparently, Frasier and Niles forgot their father's birthday.
They missed his birthday, and Niles tries to save it. He's like, "Of course it was your birthday. We were planning a big surprise party, but if we threw it on your birthday, you would have been. So we waited a week. So." This is it, your surprise party. And Martin did not buy it. He was not.
No, he didn't. He was a detective. He knows how to spot a lie.
Yes.
No, but but Frazier does apologize, and he they have a seat, and Martin's like, I don't know why I'm making a big deal out of this. I missed your birthdays when I was a police officer, so it's no big deal. And Frazier's like, well, you know what, we'll tell you what, there's no reason we can't celebrate. We're gonna take you out to dinner tonight, and they're gonna go to Hoppy's Old Heidelberg.
They're gonna go to Hoppy's Old Heidelberg,
Which is the restaurant that Martin picks out.
Right.
Not Frazier, not Niles.
Right.
You can tell that they don't seem very excited about this. This is the timber mill all over again.
This is the timber mill all over again. Are we ever gonna get an episode where we get to go to Hoppy's? Do we get to pop inside of all these various places that Martin?
I wish. I wish we could just go to every single location that's ever mentioned on Frasier.
They were voted best bratwurst of all time for 3. They were voted best bratwurst not for the year but for all time, 3 years in a row. Like
all time which if you were going to be voted the best bratwurst of all time 3 years in a row. That seems a little. How can you be if you're voted the best bratwurst of all time once, then there's no need to win it again. You don't have to constantly prove that you have the best bratwurst. You've already won the award for best bratwurst of all time.
What they do, Seattle had a comprehensive scientific study for all the different bratwursts from the beginning of time to the caveman days. And the Middle Ages, and they did all that, and they found that the best bratwurst, thank goodness, was at Hoppy's Old Heidelberg, the current year that we're in. And then Hoppy's, after a year passed, gave the trophy back and said, "Do it again," so they could win it. And then they did it one more, and that's why
just keep giving it back.
They just keep giving it back, and Martin loves it. Martin's a big fan of their bratwurst.
It's a big event when they give it back. They give them the trophy and then they give it back.
They do a quick recount. They do some quick math and they're like, no, this is still the best bratwurst of all time, and then they just push it right back. Yep.
I would love to visit Hoppy's Old Heidelberg, but never gonna happen. Never comes up again.
Damn it.
So Daphne comes in. She's like, "Oh, I've been looking for you, Martin. I've been up and down 3rd Street." And Daphne's and Martin's like, "How did you find me?" And Daphne's like, "I had one of my psychic flashes.
Bang.
I saw you walking into Cafe Nervosa, and you were just about to apologize to me for all the way you've treated me this past week." Martin's like,
"Yeah,
I'm sorry about that." And he's like, "And you were also about to give me a raise." And
and then Martin's like, "You're winging it," and Daphne's like, am I that transparent?" And Martin's like, "No, I'm psychic." And then got him.
Yeah. So Daphne's also excited about the German food.
She's not super psyched about it because we whipped, referring to the British, we whipped the Jerrys twice this century and they still have the last laugh, implying that she's not. I guess she's not excited. She's either it's sort of a Montezuma's revenge where she assumes she's going to get sick eating German food, or she's angry Germans get to have restaurants in America. And either way.
I like to think it's the latter. Yeah, like if you win a war against a country, that country doesn't get to open up any restaurants in your country.
Right.
It's one of those weird little war laws
it's one of those Geneva Conventions you hear so much about. Yeah.
So Frazier, so Martin leaves, Daphne leaves. Niles leaves with them. He's gonna give a ride to Martin. Martin asks, like, "Oh, what do you and Frazier talk about all the time?" And Niles is like, "Oh, sports, chicks, monster trucks."
Yep.
And Martin's like, "Okay, fine, don't tell me."
Don't tell me, Dick. I was trying to learn about my sons.
I was opening up.
Asshole. I'll never do it again. Never again through the entirety of the show. And then the waitress comes by and she says, Luck Hari. And she says, "Zimbabwe, decaf, non-fat milk, no cinnamon in sight. Now, are you happy?" And then, even though Niles is gone, Frazier says, in the greater scheme, "Yeah, I think I am happy." And it quietly fades out.
He's still talking about coffee.
He's still just talking.
Well, the waitress thinks he's just talking about the coffee. We know, of course. Yes, he's answering Niles' question.
And we later learn that the coffee, when you watch the end credits, Frazier wasn't talking about the coffee he was served because he signals coffee over, who pulls it away before he can say anything about what he doesn't like about it.
Yeah, it's one of those one of those end credit gags.
It's one of them goofs, and then Eddie pops up, and he's a dog, and that's fun.
Eddie like pops his head out of Frazier's coffee. He's like, "I didn't order a dog in my coffee."
I didn't order. Why are you guys serving dog coffee? And then the waitress is like, "Oh man," and that's it. Eddie. And that's.
We need to get a young Eddie show.
Yeah, a young Eddie show. He could get into mischief, and people would be like, "Oh, you're never gonna be a dog in Seattle," and he'll be like, "You'll see." Kind of like how many episodes of Young Sheldon have you seen? Give me none of them.
None of them.
You haven't seen Emmy award-winning Young Sheldon?
I think my dad watches it.
Oh, that's fun. It's a program. It's a lot of like, oh, look at how smart Sheldon is, and then that's it. That's kind of the whole show.
That's the joke.
Yeah.
Well, Wes, it has been a long road.
It hasn't gone by quickly.
No, it's not. We started doing this. What was it? It was a couple months ago.
It was several months ago. I think it was May? It might have been June. We started 5 months ago.
Time means nothing.
We started this during quarantine, which means we must have started this podcast what felt like 2 years ago. But it's only been 5 months.
But I'm glad that we've made it this far, and I'm very excited for our next season. We're going to keep doing this.
We're going to keep doing it.
I want to thank everyone who's listened. I mean, we've gotten some views. I don't know if that's a mistake.
If it's an accounting error on YouTube's part, if YouTube just... but somehow we have gotten a non-zero number of views, which Adam is very impressed with.
So yes, if you're one of those people who've listened to this podcast, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Very happy that we get to do this. And Wes, I want to thank you so much. You have put in a phenomenal amount of effort into this, and this podcast wouldn't be happening if it weren't for you. So again, I want to thank you for all the work you've put into this.
I'm very good. I feel like there's an award speech for an award this podcast is never going to win.
So I want to thank everybody, and again, we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna come back next season, which we'll probably record. I don't know when we'll record it, but we'll record it. It'll go up, and we've got some stuff planned. We've got some special stuff planned, kind of.
I'm trying to find a YouTube video of when the music they play when the award speech goes on too long.
Oh, please go ahead.
No, I go ahead.
We'll just sit in silence while you do it.
we're gonna do some. We have some Kelsey Grammer projects that are tangentially related to Frasier but aren't Frasier that we're definitely gonna be covering. Things like Money Plane and Mr. Claus.
We're gonna try and get to some guests on here, some other people to talk to Frasier about.
Look, I will level with you. I started a while back a podcast called When Keeping It Real Goes Rob, where not you and I, but I talked with other comedians about the Netflix original show Real Rob. And my goal, and I failed in this goal, was getting Rob Schneider on the podcast, because we only had 8 episodes, and he asked if he could be on the 9th episode, and it didn't work out. I didn't want to make a 9th episode. But if we don't get Kelsey Grammer on this podcast, I will consider it my greatest failure if Kelsey Grammer doesn't end up on the podcast before we finish talking about Frasier.
I think maybe some of the actors, maybe like David Hyde Pierce is on Cameo.
If we don't get Kelsey Grammer himself if we don't get Alan his first name is Alan. I looked up his Wikipedia. If we don't get alfresco Kelsey Grammer, what was the point of any of this? What was the point of any?
I don't know, Wes. I guess I just wanted to do a podcast with my friend.
Why aren't we look, if you have listened to an episode of this podcast and you have Kelsey Grammer's phone number, get it to us as quickly as possible.
Give it to us.
Please.
Yes. Just post it in the comments. Post Kelsey Grammer's personal phone number, address. Post it in the comments, and we will see it, and we'll give him a ring.
Please.
And he will probably hang up.
Comment on this podcast if you could. Go down to the comments. First of all, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Go down to the comments and type in Kelsey Grammer's social security number. And I think that's how we get him on the podcast, is we take his identity.
we steal Kelsey Grammer's identity.
Yeah. And then
we become Kelsey Grammer.
And that's kind of, if you'll allow me, that is kind of the plot of Money Plane.
If you are Kelsey Grammer,
if you're Kelsey Grammer, if you're listening to this, if you're
Kelsey Grammer and you're listening to this, first of all, loved your work in The Expendables 3. Second, please call us. Please, we'll post our number somewhere.
Yeah.
And just give us a call. Because we would love to have you on the podcast and make fun of you.
It would mean so much to us. It would mean so much if you would let us mock you on our podcast.
So, Wes, again, I want to thank everyone who's listened to the podcast. I want to thank you, Wes, and I can't wait to keep doing this. See you for season 2, Frazier on Frazier podcast. The Frazier on Frazier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frazier MIDI.